free from the defilements of the world, they shall see God. So it's talking about a certain purity of heart, a certain cleanliness of heart that prepares us to see the one who is all holy, to see the one who is completely free of all evil, in whom there is no darkness at all, namely to see the face of God in the beatific vision. Right? Number 7, Jesus says, happy are the peacemakers. Right? Who are the peacemakers? Well, this one, again, is pretty easy to understand. It's those who reconcile, who seek reconciliation with others, who seek peace with others, and also those who seek to foster reconciliation between others as well. Right? This is a very important idea in first century Judaism. The word shalom, peace, the Hebrew word for peace, is to this day still a standard Jewish greeting. So when you greet someone, you don't say hello, you say shalom, right? Which means peace to you. So Jesus here is taking something very common in Judaism and making clear, though, that those who make peace with others and who foster peace, they shall be called sons of God. So they have a special way of imaging God in seeking peace in this world. Then finally, the most paradoxical, strangest, and surprising of all Jesus' Beatitudes is the 8th Beatitude, when he says, happy are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. So this would describe any group who, or any person who is slandered, right, or falsely accused, or reviled specifically for either the sake of righteousness, in other words, for doing the right thing, or, Jesus goes on to say, for his sake. In other words, for bearing witness to Christ, for being a disciple of Jesus. If you are reviled or slandered or falsely accused because of your righteousness or because of being a disciple of Jesus, then you should count yourself happy, because yours is the kingdom of heaven, and because that's what they did to the prophets in the Old Testament. So one of the signs of being a true prophet is that people speak falsely against you. They speak ill against you. They speak evil against you, just as they did Jesus himself. Okay, so that's the basic meaning of each of the 8 Beatitudes. One last point I want to make here. I want to stress that the promises that Jesus attaches to the Beatitudes are eschatological. In other words, they point forward to the end of time, the resurrection of the dead, and the life of heaven, the life of the world to come. So for example, when Jesus says, blessed are they who mourn, they shall be comforted, he's not just talking about consolation and comfort in this life, right? Which does happen, but that's not the main point of the Beatitude. The main point is the consolation and the comfort of the resurrection of the dead at the end of time, when all of your loved ones that you've lost and mourned for in this world will be raised up body and soul, and you will be with them for all eternity, body and soul, with the Trinity, in the life of the world to come. When he's talking about, blessed are they who, the meek, they shall inherit the earth, he doesn't mean they're going to get a big piece of real estate in this world. He's talking about inheriting the world to come. That was a standard Jewish image for the new creation, the new heavens and new earth that Isaiah and other prophets said would happen at the end of time after the resurrection of the dead. The whole world would be made new through the Messiah. Same thing. When he talks about blessed are the pure in heart, look what he's saying. They shall see God. That just doesn't mean that they'll see God in other people in this life or they'll see God in the beauty of nature. He's talking about seeing God face to face in the beatific vision. And you can go on through with every one of these, it works that way. Being called sons of God, that means being part of the life of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, being sons in the Son, in the kingdom of heaven. You can see this because the first Beatitude and last Beatitude have the same promise. It begins with, they shall inherit the kingdom of heaven, and it ends with, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So the kingdom of heaven frames the promises that Jesus is making. Everything he's saying here is not that you're not going to suffer in this life. You're not going to mourn in this life. You're not going to be persecuted in this life. To the contrary, those are precisely what you will experience in this life. But in the kingdom of heaven, all of that shall be undone. In the kingdom of heaven, as the book of Revelation says, every tear will be wiped away. There will be no more mourning or crying or pain anymore, because Christ will make all things new. That's the kind of happiness. That's the ultimate happiness that Jesus is describing for us in the 8 Beatitudes at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount.
of Jesus, right? And so, his thoughts are very biblical. They're very foundational, and they help us see the scriptures in another way. Another resource that I use for understanding the Sunday scriptures is another man named Jeffrey Plant. Jeffrey Plant, again, it's another video series, and he produces something, I would say, a little bit dumbed down, but that's good for me because I can understand what he's talking about. And then a lot of the comments that I make, those are two of the primary sources that I use. Couple things. So this is the question that I'd like us to just start focusing in on, and I'd like us to take a few minutes in your groups, in your table groups. So in light of the situation that we're in, and I just identified a couple of things: gun violence, a political divide in our country, and the wars in the world. What beatitude, and you have them right in there, right? What beatitudes speak to you and why? What one beatitude might speak to you and why? So I'd like you to just take a minute and think about the question. In light of all the stuff that's going on, how do we confront it, or how do we address it? Jesus gives us a plan, I believe, in the Beatitudes. A way of going through what beatitude most speaks to you and why. Let's take a minute.
How's everybody coming with the discussion? Are you ready to run the table? Yes. So the real important, probably, and which is the next step, is what do we do about the gun violence, the political division, the things that Father Ron talked about, and in light of the Beatitudes being a formula for happiness. So we could all sit here and discuss it and have a glass of wine and a brownie and go home, and that could be the end of it. But what's really important is, what do we do about it? What changes do we make as a Catholic parish that Our Lady is knows? And what do we do to make the Wood River Valley, our home, a better place? So that's the next thing. If every table could come up with some kind of answer to that, hopefully, and maybe have a spokesman, we could see if we have 4 or 5 answers to that. I'd hope so. So let's do that for 5 or 6 minutes.
Whatever sign.
So who's ready?
Yes.
I heard a lot of good discussion. How about from this table?
A long time.
Are you ready? Okay.
Well, at my age, I'm finally becoming vocal. I never talked before. I always had fear to stand up and talk to. I try to stand up for what I believe, but I'm thankful that I'm able to have a little more confidence. And I think what our little Wood River Valley, we have huntsmen, a lot of guys who hunt. We have mental illness going on. I think it's important to be in control of your guns. I don't think you should quit having a gun to shoot with. We just have to have people who are interested in shooting. Go to your rifle marksmanship club. Lock the rifle up if you think somebody is mentally ill. I'm not in control completely.
You don't get all 5 minutes, right? Jeff is going to represent this table.
Well, thank you. We spoke about mental illness and being aware of mental illness and what we can all do. And I touched on that today's message really touched me about indifference. And I'm going to use the word complacency that we all may have, and we don't address it, right? And like you, we sometimes haven't spoken up, or we haven't acted out. And I think it's really important that we recognize the need, that everyone plays a part, and that, in this divided world, we all may have different opinions, and if we speak our truths and we speak up, that we can do that in a kind way. It doesn't have to be adversarial, it doesn't have to be mean and angry, but we have to share our truths, and we have to take action when we see things, and I think, we're called upon to look for ways in which we can make a difference.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. So,
hi, I'm Bill Kirby. So everyone talks about speaking out, and I feel disabled about speaking up. I speak out to my wife a lot, and she speaks up to me more than. So when and this all for us at the table comes out to politics, and we looked at. Blessed are those who insult you and persecute you and utter every kind of evil against you falsely, which angers me because I see that happening. So what do? We call all of our congressmen and senators regularly. We speak to our friends in a civil way and ask them if they agree with lack of freedom of speech, the Constitution. I speak to my Jewish friends about Gaza, and I worked for a Jewish company for many years, and I'm not anti-Semitic, but I'm against what the country of Israel is doing, and I try to be calm as much as I can about what they're doing. The only way I can think of speaking out is doing what I spoke about, calling our local leaders. And for those of you who don't know, not to make this too political, and sort of detail, there's a march on October 18th in Haley that's called the No Kings Rally. For those of you who might be interested in attending that might be something you want to consider about voicing your feelings.